I want to jump on to do a breaking news segment of sorts. What a story I have for you now. This is essentially the entire Republican Biden probe trying to portray him to be corrupt and all of that. Once again, but in the most epic fashion yet, going up in flames, truly crumbling to the ground. Let's think of an analogy here. The tree trunk that all the branches were coming off of and all the different allegations against Biden from Republicans trying to say he's corrupt, so don't think Trump's so bad. The trunk has now fallen to the ground, was chopped up into a bunch of pieces, and set to flames. What am I talking about? Well, do you remember? Essentially, this entire aggravating and ridiculous investigation to Biden originated with an FBI FD 1023 form from a confidential human source. Oh, okay. So that sounded so official. That's why Republicans have been able to go off of that for so long. That accused Biden of being bribed. What? Of being bribed and all these things, trying to benefit Hunter Biden's business ventures. The person who brought that claim to the FBI has just now been indicted for lying about those claims to the FBI. That FD 1023 form was bogus, and now Alexander Smirnov is being prosecuted for that very lie to investigators, attempting to mislead them. And why? Why did he do this? Because he didn't like Joe Biden as a candidate. So in 2020, to give justification for all of this punditry about Joe Biden being potentially corrupt, and we got to put it in the headline, even if we're sort of mainstream, that Joe Biden's being accused of this and this and this and this and this. And the Republicans can go for years off of this investigation, or they can do an investigation for years off of this claim, I should say, because he didn't like Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Allegedly, in this indictment, that's what's being outlined. And I have a lot to show you. Stick around for all of this. This is truly what we're observing here is the final crumbling of this whole mountain of false claims against President Joe Biden by Republicans, by Alexander Smirnov, by Fox News, by all these right-wing media networks who have spent how long and how many hours covering this story that all came from this form that sounds sort of official, FD 1023 from the FBI, confidential human source. And that confidential human source is now having to be prosecuted because he was so deceitful to the FBI about this topic. Not he's just a bad source because he's being prosecuted for something. He's being prosecuted for lying about this. And David Weiss, who's prosecuting him, doesn't just think, there's not a lot of evidence to this claim, but who knows? The evidence is so overwhelming that Smirnov was lying, that these were complete fabrications, that he feels like he can get a conviction in court. A humiliation of all humiliations for Republicans. If they don't come out, which they're not going to, but if they don't come out on national television tonight, apologize. Just before I finish that sentence, I've really tried to, in a level-headed manner, cover these. Here's the allegations. Here's why they're not legitimate, but the evidence could always be brought forward. But let's go through this. And oh my gosh, this is so absurd. Oh, this moment, without just letting completely everything out in terms of my feelings and rage about this sometimes. But now's the time. They have been smearing Joe Biden clearly, as we'll get into more on this but the rest of the previous sentence was that they should come out and apologize on national television to President Joe Biden. They should, because they've been lying about him. And now the source that they've been praising and getting all of this time on Fox News over is being prosecuted for fabricating all of it, which we knew because we've looked into the evidence ourselves. We've talked about this on the show constantly, but now it's actually playing out in a legal sense. And part of it is exciting because there's even more sort of, there's more tools in our toolbox now. If somebody out there says, I don't know, is Biden corrupt? Let me explain. Here's yet another example of why all the reasons you're hearing this on Fox News and elsewhere is because of nonsense things. But the other side is rage. Exciting that this is being confirmed so solidly, what I've been covering for so long. But on the other end, rage that so many years of just lies about Biden have been getting spread. But we'll talk more about that in a bit. Let me show you Jake Tapper reporting on this and doing a great job making clear. Don't just think some arbitrary random person's being prosecuted, something about Biden. And this is the guy. If you've been covering this nonsense, if we're going to use this term ever, it applies here. Witch hunt. I know it feels weird because Trump's always saying that, but the reason that he's saying it is because he wants people to not believe he engaged in wrongdoing and thus not believe he should be held accountable. And there's no evidence that the investigations or prosecutions of Trump are at all politically motivated or incorrectly taking place. In this case, there's nothing. The entire catalyst for this, again, years long investigation to Biden from House Republicans and all these different things, it came from a liar who just wanted to hurt Joe Biden politically. And that is sort of a witch hunt. That, if we're going to use the term, there it is. That's it. And it's pretty dang stunning. And so, again, this is the guy that it all started with. Here's Jake Tapper making that point.
Just to remind folks who Smirnoff is, because they might not know the name.
Right.
This was the individual that had claimed that he had been told by somebody who ran Burisma that Joe Biden himself was going to get $5 million for all these shady dealings.
Right.
This is the guy that Senator Chuck Grassley was insisting that this FBI report be revealed to the public.
Correct.
This was the guy who basically provided hours worth of content on Fox, especially in prime time. This was the guy who James Comer, the guy who runs the House Oversight Committee, was relying on as a major source of information. And the FBI is saying the guy's a liar. In fact, so much so we're charging him with a crime.
Correct, Jake. I mean, look, again, what the Republicans are saying is that one of the reasons why they were relying on him is that they believed he was credible, that the FBI was using him as an informant, and that gave him credibility. What we're seeing, though, in these documents, in this indictment, is that all of that was fictitious. He came up with this story after Joe Biden became the presumptive candidate for the Democrats in 2020. And of course, after he had already gone to Republicans to make some of those allegations to Chuck Grassley and to others.
I mean, again, we've done the hard work. And by we, I mean myself, other political commentators who are rational and honest, and many of you in the audience who have been interested in this. And we've dived into the different allegations and then tried our best to explain in a really meaningful and thoughtful way why these are baseless. But to see this taking place is the confirmation of all confirmations, of course, but also is proof that it's even more outrageous than I think I thought it was. I just assumed, I don't know, some wires got crossed, someone got confused, thought they said he got bribed, but no, it was somebody, again, doing a political hit job. That's what this is. Alexander Smirnoff saying, I don't like this nominee, I don't like this candidate, I'm going to go to Republicans and tell them stuff, and then I'm going to go to the FBI and tell them stuff, so that Joe Biden's hurt politically. And luckily that didn't end up preventing him from becoming president in 2020. But Republicans are doing everything they can to make that a factor in a potential loss, which I don't think Biden's going to lose. But they're trying their best to make that happen, in part with allegations like this. It's stunning and disgusting on the part of Republicans. Truly. These are such fabricated claims that this is what we got from the confidential source, as they said, from the guy who exposed Joe Biden's corruption. You know what we got? An indictment of him for lying the whole time, submitting a fraudulent form to the FBI, or having them, document one based on his claims. And the confirmation, by the way, that this is indeed the FD 1023 that we've been hearing about is here in the date. But more to look at. I'm just trying to really give you the authentic, in the moment response, because what a sick person, truly. And the lengths that Republicans have gone to hurt Joe Biden politically, going after all the members of his family, saying everything you could possibly imagine about him on national TV. If Biden were anyone else, not the president, who you can almost say anything about and not get sued for it, then there would be the easiest defamation case here ever. Here's Harry Sisson as well, talking about this on X. Breaking: David Weiss has indicted a former FBI informant who House Republicans praise for lying about President Biden's involvement with Hunter Biden's business deals. Their entire sham investigation of President Biden is falling apart. Insane. And then Kyle Cheney as well. You got Reuters talking about it. Let's see here from Midas Touch. The Department of Justice has charged Alexander Smirnov with making false statements and obstructions as it relates to Smirnov's conversations with law enforcement officials about President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Significantly, Smirnov was responsible for many of the statements House Republicans have relied upon when pushing the impeachment inquiry against President Biden. Specifically, Smirnov allegedly lied about the extent of Hunter Biden's relationship with Burisma, a Ukrainian company, and it talks about him falsely claiming that executives at Burisma paid Hunter Biden to influence, peddle, and through Vice President Joe Biden at the time, protect Burisma, and paying Joe Biden bribes and all that. It was just a fake story. A fake story Smirnov made up to hurt Biden politically. And it notes in this article that until much more recently, he's been continuing to make false claims to investigators, allegedly. But this is serious. This is really serious. And so now you have a situation where, let's just zoom out. The presidency of Joe Biden, time and time again, one of the most investigated presidents we've seen because of Republicans smearing him. And that's all evaporated. Everything they were trying to accuse him of. And the most damning things they can find is him repaying, or his brother repaying him for a loan that Joe Biden gave to his brother. So profiting zero from that, obviously. No interest loan. And they're just failing time and time again. So then that all goes away. You have a president who's been the most successful president in modern American history, has been so effective in implementing policies that are historic: the infrastructure law, the PACT Act, Chips and Science Act, infrastructure law, Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, right when he got in, the marriage equality, the gun safety bill, etc. Him being the most pro-union president we've seen, again, in modern American history. And all the while, Republicans are doing everything they can to make sure Americans are focused on something else that doesn't impact their lives. Republicans are desperately trying to make sure people don't notice that their communities are getting better because of the policies led by Joe Biden and Democrats. This was a part of that, trying to distract Americans as much as they possibly could from the fact that Joe Biden has been overseeing an economic recovery like no one expected, bringing us to a place where we're dominating on the world stage. You compare us to other major economies, and our recovery has been so strong. Lots of problems still, but better than we were expecting, and definitely better than we would have seen if Donald Trump were still president. Lord help us. And even things like crime spiking in 2020 when Donald Trump was still president. I blame that largely on the pandemic. Joe Biden comes in, now it's down to pre-pandemic levels, and in places like Detroit, 50-year lows. But nobody's thinking about that because all we're talking about are these ridiculous investigations and ridiculous conversations about how he's too old to be president. Let me be clear. It's fine to have that concern. I'm not judging you for that. Totally legitimate. And those conversations are valid. The ridiculousness is the magnitude of the conversation. If historic pieces of legislation are getting through and Joe Biden's accomplishing things that nobody thought that he could and overseeing a recovery from a crisis that nobody thought possible, is it really reasonable to spend all of our time talking about how many years it's been since he was born? Let's talk about it, but 99% of the time, really? No one really knows, for the most part, that Joe Biden, in a very fact-based sense, has been the most successful president, the most effective president in modern American history. Maybe a few more conversations about that could help mainstream media. And one of the reasons that a lot of people don't focus on that fact is because of ridiculous stunts like this from Republicans that prove to be just that, ridiculous. And so hopefully this moves the needle a little bit. But Republicans are really good at constantly finding a new way to distract people from the fact that Biden's policies and Democrats' policies and occasionally some bipartisan Republicans' policies are improving their lives, or at least they're trying to solve problems. Even the problems that Republicans say they care about, they're actually the ones obstructing, like the border bill. And things like the infrastructure law are actually trying to make their communities better. Things like the gun safety bill are trying to keep their families more safe. Inflation Reduction Act, trying to make the cost of prescription drugs more affordable. These things matter. James Comer doing his 368th segment on Fox News about the Biden crime family, those things don't matter. The fact that wages are increasing compared to inflation because of Biden's economic policies. The fact that job growth has been consistently unbelievably strong and unemployment unbelievably low. Those things matter. People having a job so they can provide for their family, that matters in their lives. James Comer convincing you as a Fox News viewer to vote for him so that he can keep investigating Biden or keep going after the Democrats, that's not improving your life at all. It's distracting you. I'll leave it there. My goodness. I will talk to you all next time.